This is the Stine Seedcast. I'm your host, David Thompson. Join me as we visit with growers, agronomists, seed experts, and other industry professionals about seed, agronomy, and the business of farming. Hello, and welcome to the Stine Seedcast. I'm David Thompson, National Marketing and Sales Director for Stine Seed Company. Today, we welcome back to the Seedcast Kayla Noble, Technical Agronomist for Stine Seed Company. Thanks for joining us, Kayla.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, David.
So in this episode, Kayla is going to give us an inside look on the work that she and the agronomy team are doing around our product development plots as they look at in-season decisions and outcomes and gather early field-level insights. We're going to discuss why this research is so valuable for both growers and sales reps. So let's get started. So Kayla, I know you've been on the Seedcast before, but maybe start out by telling us a little bit about yourself and your role here at Stine and what you and the agronomy team do to help our grower customers.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm a technical agronomist here at Stine. I live here in Iowa, but my territory covers Minnesota, Wisconsin, the eastern half of Iowa, and northern Illinois. So within my role here on the agronomy team, I evaluate our product development plots within my territory, and we use that data and information to help educate our sales team and our growers on the products that we're selling, and then also be there throughout the growing season to help provide recommendations as far as placement, management practices, and just evaluate anything that we're seeing in season and provide, insight and recommendations on kind of how to handle or manage some of the things that we see throughout the growing season or issues that we run into.
Great. Well, so before we get into some of the research work that you and the agronomy team are doing, I guess in the area that you cover, I guess maybe tell us a little bit about what the season has looked like so far at this early stage in the growing season.
Yeah, so far this year, I know a lot of people got a pretty early start on planting. Down here in Iowa, a lot of guys plant soybeans before corn. I know that kind of varies by region, but things started going in the ground early in April, and things stayed pretty steady throughout most of the month of April. And then I think we got some rains early on in May. That slowed things down a little bit, but nothing like we saw last year, where we got, all of that rain at the end of April, beginning of May, and people were out for 2 to 3 weeks. This year, it was pretty short-lived on how long we were out of the field. But so far, with everything that's gone into the ground, some of that earlier planted stuff we've seen some issues with crusting. There was some cold, wet soils where we've seen emergence be an issue. And over in northern Illinois, where it was a little bit drier, we've had some pre-emerge herbicides that, didn't get activated. So starting to see that weed pressure come in a little bit earlier. But for the most part, the crops have been coming out of the ground pretty well. I've had, a few phone calls for soybean replant decisions, but corn has been doing pretty well. I know we kind of had a cold spell there where cool temps slowed things down for a little bit, but now that we're starting to warm up again, really starting to see things take off.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be a growing season if there wasn't a few issues here and there around the country, and so it seems like there's always a little bit of something. So one of the things we're here to talk about today is the product development plots. We talked about that at the top, and that is something that I know you're fairly heavily involved in. Internally, we kind of refer to these as PDP plots. So I guess for starters, maybe take me back. This whole process is relatively new as the way it's set up now. Maybe explain the concept behind them and how you and the rest of the agronomy team goes about kind of executing the design of the PDP trials.
Yeah, so just kind of starting from the beginning, the whole purpose for these product development plots is to take these products that we currently have branded, as well as experimental products that we're looking to possibly bring to market, and get those spread out across different regions, across different soil types, things like that, just to get a better understanding of how they grow in these different environments. I know with the elite trials, we get a lot of yield data information, which is extremely valuable. And here at Stine, we drive our decisions based off yield, but then we have the question of, okay, we know the yield potential on these products, but now how do we place them and where do we place them?
So with these PDP plots, I guess, tell me a little bit about what kinds of things that you and the team are kind of looking for and hoping to see in the field with these trials.
Yeah, so throughout the growing season, it's our goal to get back to these plots about once every 2 weeks or so to just get a good look at everything and evaluate what's going on. We have a lot of notes that we take all season long. I mean, we're taking notes when we're there at planting all throughout the summer and then all the way through harvest. So some of the main things that we look at, especially right now, we're out taking emergence scores on everything to see how even are these plants coming out of the ground. We go and do some early season assessments and just look at vigor. We see how they respond to herbicide applications and things like that. And as we get into the middle of the season, we then start evaluating pollination. Are the plants tasseling and silking at the appropriate times when we want them to? Are we getting good pollination? We take notes like plant heights, ear heights, things like that, just to get a better understanding of the architecture of these products. And then when it comes to harvest, we go out and then again look at what we have for a stand, what we have for harvestable ears, and we harvest these plots and weigh them out and collect that yield data, and then generate a yield trend similar to what we see in the elite trials, and then we can kind of compare those two back to each other.
Good. And I know from what I've seen that there are a lot of different data points that your team is tracking all throughout the growing season. So talking a little bit about these PDP plots, and you mentioned earlier the elite trials. So the elite trials are core testing system for varieties and hybrids. And I think you did a really good job of kind of, talking about how those kind of fit together. But again, just to kind of review, how does the data you're doing from the PDP plots help round out the additional information that we've already gathered through the elite testing program?
Yeah, so Stine's big driver in selecting products is looking at yield. And so with the elite trials, you can think of those essentially as yield trials. They're placed all throughout the country, and they're small plots. So with those, we're seeing what the yield potential is for any given product, but across our selling area as a whole. And so we need to know what the potential is of these products. But then once we have that information, then our next question is, okay, well, how do we place them? Where do we place them? So that's where the product development plots come into play, and we can set these out on more of a regional basis across different environments and soil types and things like that to better understand where they're going to perform best. And so then we can kind of tie that yield trial data in with those yield trends with our regional data on performance and better help growers decide where to place these products.
Sure. So the elite trials kind of set the bar for what products have the highest potential. And then the PDP plots help us figure out how to properly place those products once we've kind of zeroed in on the products that are going to advance. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, that'd be a great summary.
Awesome. So far, this stage in the season, are there any insights or observations from the field you've seen, that you're keeping an eye on related to these PDP plots?
Yeah, so on the corn side, I think early in the season, we get a lot more out of corn than we do on the soybeans. With soybeans, we look at emergence and what stands are out there. But for the most part, when you're walking a soybeans PDP plot at this time of year, everything kind of looks the same. On the corn side, though, there's a lot more things that stand out right now. So again, still looking at emergence scores, seeing which ones, have the most even emergence, which ones might be a little more variable. We can also see which ones struggled, in maybe the cooler, wet soils, and which ones handled it a little bit better. And then we also can see vigor differences too across these hybrids when we're looking at the corn. So just a lot that we can pick up early in the season right now on the corn side that may also help tell a story later in the season if we see other issues arise.
And how do these recommendations that you're going to be, or how do these observations you're making throughout the growing season ultimately translate to recommendations you're going to make to either members of Stine's sales group or to their customers as far as, how to properly place these products and select the best products?
Yeah, so I mean, throughout the season and even past harvest, we hold trainings with our sales teams to teach them and provide them with all this data and information that we're collecting in the product development plots. And then with that, they can then go to the grower and ask, what their management practices are, what environments, soil types, things like that they're planting in. And then they have the information there in their back pocket to be able to provide the recommendations on which one of these products, would best handle some heavier soils that somebody may have, or lighter soils, or some of these products may move north better than we see them move south. So just being able to give the sales team as much data and information as possible as we go throughout the season, so that way when they're trying to turn and make sales to the growers, we're confident in what we're telling them, what we're selling them, and how this product is going to perform the following year.
Sure. So we talked about the PDP plots, and I know you guys have several other projects. You always have a lot of projects you're working on to help keep our customers and our sales team informed. Are there other projects going on this summer that you're particularly excited about?
So one thing we did do earlier this year that we didn't do last year with the product development plots is we actually were given all of our hybrids on the corn side, and we ran them through a planter stand this spring to better evaluate singulation. And we actually saw really good results out of that. So that was something new that we did this year that was interesting. And like I said, we got, I think for the most part, everything was, 95% above on singulation, most of those being 99. In addition to that, throughout the season, we also have seed treatment trials again this year alongside our soybean product development plots. So with these, we're looking at products for soybean cyst nematode. And this year, we're looking at Saltro compared to, there's a new biological product from UPL that we have out there.
And refresh my memory. So how many of these PDP plots do you have out there?
So this year, we're sitting at about 70 corn product development plots across our growing area, and I think we're right at about 70 soybean product development plots as well.
Oh, wow.
So in total, we've got about 140.
Keeps you busy then if you're trying to get to all of them every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Are there other special trials or testing or evaluations that the agronomy team is currently involved in that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, so this year, in addition to the PDPs, we also have a handful of disease studies out there on the soybean side, where we've done some single row plots to evaluate white mold and IDC, or iron deficiency chlorosis. So with these small single row plots, we're just really looking to validate or update the scores and ratings that we have for these products and their tolerances to these diseases. I know there's certain areas, especially, you get out in western Minnesota, where IDC just has multiple driving factors that run the disease. And maybe what we saw in an initial study gave it one rating, and then when we put it out there, it tends to act a little bit differently. So we're just really looking this year to kind of standardize that scoring to generate these ratings to hopefully better predict how they're going to tolerate these specific diseases.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because disease scoring is tricky, because first of all, you have to have presence of presence of the disease or issue. Secondly, if it's too prevalent, then it's awful hard to score when everything's getting hit. So the more data and the better you can standardize that, the better. So that sounds like a great project for helping us draw a better line. So at the end of the season, after you've gathered all of this information, where would growers ultimately be able to find the results or the information that you guys have gathered once you kind of get to the end of the year and you've made some observations, kind of been able to formulate some plans? How's that information find its way to the grower?
Yeah, so actually, this question kind of gets me to talk about something that I've pushed pretty hard for and am excited about. But we actually started working with a company to be able to collect all of these notes and everything on an online database. And so we can do everything from the field. It automatically uploads to the cloud, and that data and information is available right away. And so we can add people on our sales team, so our regional sales agronomists or even some of the ISRs, into this system. And so they can go in and look and see the data that we're collecting as we collect it, versus in the past, it's been a lot of, we go collect the data, but we really don't see the results until after harvest when everything's been looked at and analyzed. And so with this program too, we can generate analysis as we go. So if I go out and take notes in a plot, I can then run a report right when I'm done and hand it over to the grower or the RSA and show them the results right then and there. So I think just collectively, everything that we're looking at and all the data that we're collecting this year, we're able to pass that out and send that information along as we go. And so really, I think the biggest thing is just going to be reaching out to your ISRs or your RSAs and just asking for that data, because this year we have it all very readily available.
Well, that's nice. Yeah, because then it's not just kind of an after the fact. You have the ability to kind of look at that data almost in real time and potentially have time to make some adjustments depending on what you're seeing in the field. So you and your team, we've talked about some of these projects you work on in the agronomy department. I guess when it comes to growers, what do you want them to understand about the value that our agronomy team is working to deliver for our customers?
Yeah, so I think, the main goal of our agronomy team here is just to help maximize those crop yields for the grower, improve profit margins by helping them select the right products for their ground, and then also help with the management around them. So, we're there at the beginning of the season to help select what products to place and where, and then we're there all season long. So if any issues arise, we can evaluate them and work together to come up with a solution.
And so if we have any growers who want to learn more or reach out to you or the agronomy team about questions of anything we talked about or other questions, where can they learn more about either the PDP plots or the work that the agronomy team is doing?
Yeah, so if any of the growers are looking to reach out to anyone on agronomy, I think their first step would be just getting in contact with their ISR. We all work very closely with the ISRs and their RSAs. So just staying in contact with those people, and they'll pass, information along to us as needed. And we're more than happy to come out and walk fields with you.
Awesome. Well, Kayla, thank you for joining us, coming on, talking in particular about the PDP plots. I think it's a great project and a huge project that you guys have taken on, but I think it really pays big dividends for our growers to help provide placement information and help them, really, really maximize every acre that they plant. And that doesn't come easy. I know you guys put in a lot of work, so appreciate the work that you and the rest of your team do on that and everything else. And thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Stine Seedcast. To never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your podcast platform of choice. Have a question for our experts? Email asktheseedcast@stineseed.com to have your questions answered on a future episode. To learn more about Stine Seed Company, visit stineseed.com. And remember, Stine has yield.